Hello, second graders. My name is Bob Brazier. I am one of the 5 authors of Our Children's Heritage, your Clarkston history textbook. One text feature found throughout Our Children's Heritage is stories from the past. In these segments, we get to hear from people who, through the years, have called our community home. One citizen whose story appears in the textbook is Ann Moshier, whom you are about to hear from. Mrs. Moshier is a special person with a deep love for history and our community. And, as you'll see, she has quite an extraordinary connection to a heroic figure featured in the text. Ann Moshier knows how important it is to keep history alive, and we thank her for helping do that by sharing a duty to honor, a duty to remember the powerful and personal tale you're about to hear. For this gift of preserving part of our past, we are indebted to Ann Moshier.
Hi, thanks for having me this year to tell you about my family history, and it also has to do with your Clarkston history. And I'll start out telling you why I decided to do this. And it's to honor my grandfather, for one, and to honor my mother. My grandfather was an Oakland County sheriff, and he died a month before my mother was born. So what my mother and I decided to do was to go down to the Oakland Press, may have been called Pontiac Press at that time, and look up any article we could find during 1932 that had anything to do with this bank robbery that happened in Clarkston that I am going to tell you about. So all these articles that I have on the table, everything you're going to see here, they're either pictures I took or they're pictures from the Oakland Press, and you'll see how old they are. Your teacher said that you did read part of your history book, the second grade history book, and so you know about the bank robbery. And so how it starts out is there are 3 men. One is called Ben Dillon, his brother is Scott Dillon, and his friend is Leo Bogart, okay? Those are going to be your 3 main characters in this story. So to begin with, I'm going to introduce you to my grandfather. It's called A Duty to Honor, A Duty to Remember. And I hope this presentation stays with my family throughout history. As I said in the other class, I have 12 grandchildren, so I think somebody will end up being a history buff, and they'll keep it going. So this is Under Sheriff Frank Greenan, and this is Sergeant Harvey Tedder. He is my grandfather. And these two had a lot to do with the bank robbery and solving the crime. And it took, let me see, July, August. It took 3 months, I think, to solve the crime. So this is a new picture that I've recently received. This picture is now hanging down at the Oakland County Sheriff's Office. It is when my grandfather hired in as a police officer. So it has his signature, and they actually dug it out of the archives and framed it and hung it up on the wall down there. So I went down there and got a picture of it so I could add it to my presentation. So I was pretty excited when I found that out. This is a gentleman that I worked with. He's an Oakland County deputy. He's a lieutenant. I worked with him at Clarkston High School. He was the police officer that, you know how the high school and junior high, they have their police officers? He worked at the high school when I worked there. And I told him about my grandfather. He helped me find where the farmhouse was located. He reached out to Lapeer County Sheriff's Department and got some information from them. So that's basically how we got to, it took a lot of people, but we got to find out where the farmhouse was at. So this is a list of other people that you're going to hear about in the story. And these are the people in the bank. David Tegardine, he is the president of the state bank. Mr. Ainsley was a cashier. Miss Isabel King was a teller. And then there were 7 community members that were also in the bank at the time of the holdup. So this is the family of the bank robbers. So this is Ben Dillon, Scott Dillon, and Leo Bogart. Ben Dillon and Scott are brothers. They called them the Dillon Gang. You have Leo Bogart. He was a friend of theirs that they talked into being a part of the bank robbery. Claudia Dillon is Ben Dillon's girlfriend, and I'll have a picture of her. And Marion Holloway, Claudia Dillon is the mother of the Dillon boys, and Marion Holloway is Ben Dillon's girlfriend. And you'll see pictures of them. So this is the picture. Can I get to it? That's what I believe, that's the picture that's in your history book. So that's a drawing of what the bank looks like back in 1932. And it says July 16th, more than 100 officers, including all of Oakland County deputies, were called about the bank robbery when it happened. So it was a lot of police officers. This is downtown Clarkston. That's where you're going to take your history tour. So this is where the bank is located. And just so you get an idea, that's the mill pond. So this is Main Street. So you'll walk all around that town and you're going to go to all these different historical sites. And I think you're going to find it pretty interesting and fun. So, okay, what I'm going to do is tell you how the story started. The three men, Ben, Scott, and Leo, they decided they were going to rob the state bank, Clarkston State Bank. Leo Bogart stole a Chevy car from somewhere down in Pontiac, and they used that as the getaway car. So Leo and Ben went into the bank, and they were the ones that robbed the bank. And when they went in there, they had guns. They put 7 of the community members in a back room and told them to stay there. And if they did, nobody would get hurt. They used Isabel, the teller, to get all the money out of the bank, out of the vault, and put it in a bag so they could get away with it. Scott was in the car, and he did hear a gunshot. In my articles, I read that he heard a gunshot, and he didn't know if his brother or somebody shot somebody or what happened. So when they got back into the car, he said, "What happened in there?" And they said, "Well, we just shot into the air to make the community members know that they meant business, that they better stay in the back room, or, they would get hurt." So everybody did what they were told. Nobody got hurt. They got out of the bank, got into the getaway car, and they drove down Walden Road. Do you know where Walden Road is?
Yes.
It's right out here where your school is at. So they drove down Walden Road, took off, they had a car hidden in the woods, and in the car they had a change of clothes, and they also had another car there, which was called a Roadster. And so what they did was they changed out of their clothes, they got into the other car, and then they took off and headed towards Lapeer, where there was a farmhouse that Ben and Scott Dillon's mother had purchased. They had an older brother, and at the time, back then, he passed away in an airplane accident, and the mother got insurance money life insurance policy and use that money to put down on the farmhouse out in Lapeer. So that's how they bought that. But they were going to use this farmhouse as a place to live and act like normal everyday farmers. And so they would be in disguise and nobody would think that they were bank robbers. Until Ben Dillon became friends with a boy that lived out there, and he ended up, not so brightly, telling the story of the bank robbery to this boy that he met. Many years of doing this presentation, a lot of kids would ask me, how old was the boy? Because in the story, it shows a little boy running away and indicating that it was a little boy that told the authorities that he knew where the bank robbers lived. Well, in my articles from the Oakland Press, I found out that the man was between 18 and 19 years old. And he's the one who told the authorities that he knew where the bank robbers lived. So my grandfather, once they found out about, they got this tip that they knew where they thought they would find the bank robbers living. They called all the police, like I said in that one little blurb I read, it said about 100 police officers were called at night, and they all came together, and in the morning they drove out to Lapeer, it's called Deerfield, and they found the farmhouse. Now Scott and Ben Dillon were out on the farm working it, and Scott Dillon took off running to what they call an outhouse or an outbuilding, and he hid and thought he was hiding in this building, but the police saw him running into the building. They took off, grabbed him, and arrested him, and they handcuffed him to a police car. So they handcuffed him so they could go after Ben Dillon, who ran into the house. Now, this is where Under Sheriff Greenan and my grandfather come into the story, because they were the first ones on the scene. And they had the president of the bank with them, so he could identify who robbed the bank, because he was there when it was being robbed. So they pull up there, and he said that it was absolutely them. And so they got out of the car, ran after Ben Dillon into the house. Ben ran in and got a shotgun. And yes, there was a shootout. And Sheriff Greenan was the first one to get shot. And he was going in the door when Ben shot through the door, and it shot the Under Sheriff Greenan. He later died at a hospital. My grandfather was the backup, and he ran in and got into the kitchen area, kitchen living room area, and Ben Dillon came around the corner, and they both, at that time, shot each other. And so they both died at that time. So the farmhouse I'm going to show you is where my grandfather passed away. This is what history does over time to a building. This is back in 1932. That's what Clarkston, downtown Main Street, looked like. And then the bank has changed over the years. I remember it as this, and then it's turned into the restaurant, the Fed, which I'm sure many of you have been to.
The Fed?
The Fed, yeah. And they named it the Fed. It used to be a bank, and the Federal Reserve is part of the government that oversees banks, so they called it the Fed. So I said I was going to show you pictures of the people. So this is Ben Dillon. Ben Dillon is the one who shot my grandfather, and my grandfather shot him. This is their mother, Ben and Scott's mother. And this is a prosecutor at the table, and also David Tigerdine. He was at the bank at the time the robbery happened. And again, that's my grandfather. Now, this is the girlfriend of Ben Dillon, and this is a picture of them together. I'll come back to this picture. After everything was said and done at the farmhouse, after the robbery, after the shootout, after all that, they arrested Scott Dillon. They arrested the mother and the girlfriend, and they were hiding in the house. Ben told them to hide when he was running in, so the police did find them. They arrested him, took him to the police station for questioning, and let's see. So the one person that, let's see, I'm trying to find him. I guess he's back here. Okay, so this is Leo Bogart. He was the friend that was also involved. He was not at the farmhouse when all that took place. He was hiding out at his brother's house in another town. And during this is Scott. He is writing out his version of the story, his confession of what happened leading up to the robbery, everything he knew about the robbery. And during that confession, he told the police where Leo Bogart was hiding. So they went out to his brother's house and they found him just in time because he was getting ready to leave the state and go to Canada. He had money in his pockets, what he took from the robbery, and they found him in the driveway getting ready to leave. So they caught him just in time. And so they had the two that were still alive under arrest, and so they put them in jail. They did release the mother and the girlfriend because they stated they didn't know that, their son, her boyfriend, that they were robbers. They didn't know anything about that. It's hard to believe, but that's what they said, so they did release them. And so going out to the farmhouse, let's see. Oh, this is, I'll show you this picture first before we go out to the farmhouse. This is my family. These are all my aunts and uncles. They go from 20 years old to 2 years old. And then my mother, who was a month old, she wasn't born yet when my grandfather died. She was born a month after he died. So this is my grandmother, and that's the reason why I do this. She's the reason why I have all this documentation. She wanted to know about her father, and we worked for quite a few days down at the Oakland Press getting all these articles. So all these articles are back from 1932. It's a long time ago. So this is the farmhouse. If I can click on it. Okay, so this is a farmhouse, what it looks like today. And I do have a picture down here what it looks like in 1932. But in this picture, there's a story about, how I told you when they took off from the bank and they went and changed their clothes and they changed cars, and so the police really didn't know who they were looking for. The police asked the people in the bank and they asked community members, what did you see? What did they look like? What were they wearing? So they would know who they were looking for. Well, they were smart enough to know that, okay, we're going to change our clothes, we're going to change the car that we're driving, so now the police don't know, they're looking for a different car, different clothing, so they're in a disguise. So when I found this farm, I met the woman who owns it and asked her if I could come out there and talk to her and tell her the story about her farmhouse, because she didn't know anything about the bank robbery. And we were talking about how they changed their clothes, changed the car, got into disguise. Well, then she showed me this bottle that she had found when she took down a wall in her house because she was redoing the farmhouse. And this bottle is a bottle of hair tonic. Now, hair tonic is to change the color of your hair. So in an article, one of the articles that I read, they did say that the robbers changed the color of their hair. So this is an artifact that was inside this farmhouse since 1932. And I did ask her if she wanted to part with it, but she didn't want to give it up. I don't blame her. But I have a picture of it, and I'm glad I have it. And so this is the barn where the money was hidden. And Ben Dillon put the money in a bag and then into a glass jar, and then hid it in manure. And so he figured that the police wouldn't find it there. He only told one other person where it was at, and that was Leo Bogart. And Leo was the one who had to tell the police where the money was, so where they would find it. So that was what I pulled up to at the farmhouse. And this is what it looked like back in 1932. So it kind of resembles it, but they did some changes. It still has the same pitch. But on the inside, they took down some walls and opened it up and made it a little nicer. And so this is the woman who owns the house now. And this is the goat house that she makes goat cheese at this farm now. She actually uses it as a learning farm. She teaches adults and kids how to make honey and how to make goat's cheese, and some other stuff, crafts. And I said, I went into that little goat house. She said I could go in there because there were some babies in there. But that goat did not like me and kind of butted me out. So she pushed me out of her area because she did have babies in there. So, but it was fun. It was a learning experience, that's for sure. I'm not a farm person. This is a timeline. Do you know what a timeline is?
Yes.
Oh, yes. This is like a summary. Like if I didn't stand up here and tell you all the details about this bank robbery, in a short version, I could tell you in 1932, July 16th, the bank was stolen and $4,000 in cash was taken. In the summer of 32, the robbers hid the money, it says, in a special place in the barn. And then November 1st, 1932 is when they found out where the bank robbers were hiding. And November 2nd, this is when they got the tip. November 2nd, they went out to the barn, and then that's when the shootout happened. And then December 2nd is when my mother was born. So that's a timeline, a summary of the whole story. And again, this is my grandfather. And this is just something I learned while going through all my paperwork and working with the lieutenant. So when you see it, EOW, end of watch, that means when a police officer has finished his career, like my grandfather did in a shootout, it's called end of watch. So my grandfather's end of watch was November 2nd, 1932. So that was something I learned during all this. So, yeah, he was 42 years old. And these are his badges. One went on his hat that he wore, his police hat, and one went on his uniform. And they're still in my family. And actually his revolver, his police revolver, is still in our family. One of his grandsons has it. And another cousin of mine has the badges. So that is the story of the Clarkston State Bank robbery and the version of my family history and my mother and my grandfather. And I like to share it with you guys because I know you go on the history tour and I know you learn about the bank. I wish the bank was still there, but it's not, and that's what happens over time. History changes things, and so we have to preserve it. So if anybody grows up and you're interested in history, research it, and like I did, if you can get articles, save it, preserve it, and you can, 60 years later, you can tell people about it. So, okay, I'm gonna take questions, and I'll just start up front, and I'll just work my way back. And thank you for being so quiet and listening. I really appreciate it. You guys were great.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
How old was the cars?
I don't know how old the cars were actually, but it was back in 1932, so they were old. In that picture, can you see these cars?
Yeah.
That's pretty old. I don't know what year they were made though. Okay.
What happened? One of them did the robbers die?
One robber died, 2 went to jail.
Are they still living?
No, they would be about 150 years old now. Yeah, so long time.
Did the robbers get released?
I read where one was served 30 years. He was given 30 years in jail, in prison. So he would have been released, he would have been in his late 50s. So could have. I've Googled like his name and tried to find out like where he is now or where he went after that, but nothing comes up. So anybody else?
What's the name of the farmhouse?
The farmhouse? Well, they call it Maize. It's M-E-J. She uses it, like I said, as a teaching farm.
I also have another question. So, how old were you when you visited
The farm? How old was I? Probably 50.
how was the money still there?
No.
Or was that, or did the second robber that was going to get out of the state, he had
No, there was still some money left in the barn.
a lot of it, or just some?
No, not a lot of it. I think it was like $138 or something like that. It was minimal. And there's a picture. I told you I would go back to. I forgot. Right here. Oops. Right. There it is. Okay, so this is the jar that they took. That's the bag, and there's the money that they got out of it. So that's what was left, and it was returned to the bank. So what money was left was returned to the bank. Did you remember yours?
How old was the farmhouse?
How old was the farmhouse? I don't know what year the farmhouse was built. I just know everything took place in 1932. That's a good question, though. I'm going to write that one down.
Did the woman, like the farm owner,
Knowing the story?
yeah,
Yes.
the story of
Yes. Yeah, what I did was I actually took one of the photos and this one that shows the house when it was back in 1932 and what it looks like now. And I framed the article for her and she has it hanging in her kitchen. So yes, she did like it. Anybody else back here? Okay, go ahead.
How old was the bank?
How old was the bank? It was old because I know there's pictures before even what I have, but I don't know the year it actually opened. You guys have some good questions. Good. Don't leave. Let me write that down. Go ahead.
Every time you get from like what happened, do you kind of get sad?
Do I get sad? I don't get sad. I look at my grandfather as a hero. I get sad for my mother because she didn't know her father. That's kind of the part that, but I'm glad that I took this time with my mom and we spent a lot of time going through this and researching it, and it made my mom very happy. They actually, Oakland County asked us to come down to the sheriff's office on Telegraph Road, and every year they do a memorial service for they call it the fallen heroes. And so they asked us to speak at this ceremony. And after that, my mother felt like she finally had closure and that she knew my father, and it was a very happy feeling for me that we did all this. And so no, I don't get sad about it anymore. Nope, I'm happy I did it.
I know you said you found there was like $158 left, but what happened to the other money?
Well, they said again, the articles I read, that they found a lot of jewelry, expensive jewelry in the farmhouse. They found fur coats in the farmhouse and just a lot of like expensive clothing for back then. And so they were spending the money. Yeah, and Ben Dillon was a lifetime criminal. He had already, before this, he had went and robbed a General Motors facility. So he had money from that too. And after this one, I read he had already planned to do another one in Ohio. So he was already planning to go rob another bank in Ohio. So he was a lifetime criminal. So when I think of that, my grandfather stopped him from going and possibly hurting people. And so that's why I think of him as a hero. And he was protecting Clarkston, downtown Clarkston too. So
You know how much money it took?
it says 4,000, but in a couple articles it differentiates the amount by a couple thousand, but around 4,000, which was a lot of money back then. So, did you have a question? No? Anybody back there?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
So why did they rob it? Like,
Why did they rob
you
it?
should never rob anything.
You should never rob anybody, anything. But I can answer that question because Ben Dillon said that he never wanted to be poor, and he wanted to always take care of his mother and his girlfriend and his brother.
Yeah, but you should, like, if you're poor,
You should get a job.
what they do now is, like, they get money and then they ring bells, so then people put money in cups and then they do that. They give it to other people that are poor. They
Yeah.
don't have that much.
I know. And you know, people, the right way to do it is to get a job and earn money the right way. You don't steal from people. Go ahead.
Was there a lottery like back then?
A lottery? No. Nope. Did you have a question?
In the summer, I'm gonna sell, like, stuff. I'm gonna sell, in the summer, I'm gonna sell
I can't hear you. I'm sorry.
in the summer, I'm gonna sell, like,
Oh, you're going to sell stuff to make money? Okay, that's a good way to do it. That's a good way to make money.
What is manure?
It's it's cow. It was poop from the cows.
Didn't the bottle just get all messed up?
Well, they had to wash the bottle off. They had gloves on, and they washed the bottle off. So, go ahead.
How much was in his pockets?
In Leo's pockets, it never said. It just said he had his portion of the robbery in his pockets, is what it said. It didn't tell me how much.
When were the robbers born and your grandfather?
Well, I can tell you their ages. So Ben Dillon was 20 years old. So if this happened in 32, he was born, it was 2000, oh no, 1932, 1900. I'm not doing math up here. I can tell you this because I learned it in the last session. My grandfather was born in 1890, and he was 42 years old. But the boys were 26, 20 years old. You know, they were young. So this is a good class. They're getting me, getting me good questions. Did you have a question, honey?
Me?
Yeah. No, not you. Him.
I forgot.
Oh, you forgot? Okay. Okay, who didn't ask me a question up here? Go ahead.
Never mind, I forgot.
Who hasn't asked a question that wanted to ask one? We have 5 minutes until special, and I know Mrs. Moshier also has some cool stuff that she wants us to look at.
I think Ben Dillon was born in 1912.
1912? Okay, we'll figure that out. So you're 12, 20, 30. Yeah, you got it. You got it. Good job.
Thank you. Hey, Team Boyer and
welcome.
Team Killowell, what do we say to Mrs. Moshier? Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.
You're welcome. And I really hope you enjoy your history walk and knowing a little bit more about what happened at the bank robbery and the story behind it now. You have the inside scoop. So.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.